Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Cocked, locked. There we go. Your dial set correctly to USA Prepares. Thank you for being in class with us today. Nathan is engineering the broadcast in Minnesota. I'm Vincent Finelli. If you'd like to call us, we'll pay for the call. 866-582-9933. 866-582-9933. Telephone listen lines up and running. 605-477-3249. 605-477-3249. Rich Sheben's with us. OffGridMontana.com. Welcome, Rich.
Well, thank you, Vincent. How are you this morning?
I'm hot. I guess, the term would be miffed. I guess maybe the term would be angry. Maybe the term would be frosted. How can I be hot and frosted at the same time? When I was when I was growing up, things were if something was really nice, it'd be hot. That's really hot. And then it was really cool to be nice. And so the English language is a little confusing. So I'm miffed, frosted, hot under the collar. And, it has to do with what's wrong with America. You and I have been talking about this off air and on air for, years. But we haven't really used the term what's wrong with America. And so there's so many things that we can find that's wrong with America, and we can fix them. And that's what we talk about here. So let me just share with you a little story. So over the weekend, I got a call from one of our boys, and he was helping someone buy a washing machine. And he said, we're going shopping. I'm helping this young lady. She wants to buy a washing machine. I said, well, okay, just here's a couple things to keep in mind. Number one, Whirlpool is the way to go. Now, why do I say that? Well, we've had a appliance repair person on our faculty here at USA Prepares. And he did a seminar, actually did a couple of them, at the meetups. And the question was, what's the best washer to buy? Whirlpool. What's the best washer to buy? Whirlpool. Why is that? Well, because you can get parts, they last the longest, they cause the fewest problems. Whirlpool. What about the Asian ones? Well, not so good. They're hard to fix, expensive to fix. So what's the best washing machine to buy? Whirlpool. Okay. And what kind? What about the electronics? What about, the mechanical timers? Well, get the one with the mechanical timers. They seem to last the longest by far. And the electronic ones, the ones you push the buttons and the display lights up and tells you what cycle it is and how you're filling the tub and all that kind of stuff, they cause all kinds of problems, have all kinds of failures. They're expensive to fix. So that being said, my advice to our son to pass on to his friend was Whirlpool, standard agitator, mechanical timer, avoid the electronics, avoid the displays. So I thought, good. And he called me back and he said, so she found one she really likes and it has this one knob. So it's got a knob. And I said, does it have a display? He said, yeah, it's got a display. Okay, well, that means it's got a computer. Does it have an agitator? Well, sort of, but it's different. It's a high efficiency. I said, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. All right, so why is that? Well, let me just read some of the reviews of these high efficiency washers. And this is from bestbuy.com/site/reviews/Whirlpool-Cabrio 4-3CU-FT as in cubic feet, 12-cycle high efficiency top loading white washer ratings. Okay, that's the website. All right, so posted 2 years ago. We chose this one based on reviews on various websites. Almost 4 years to the day, the Whirlpool Cabrio washer is dead. Bad bearings due to design due to the design requiring replacing the interior tub as well. Repair guy advised us it would cost nearly $400 to repair with parts and labor, so we shouldn't sink any money into this machine. No guarantee something else wouldn't go, meaning go wrong. And instead buy new. When I started looking online, finding that the bad bearings on this machine is common, I contacted Whirlpool, noting that this seems to be a common issue, product defect, and was advised by Whirlpool that it was in the past it was past the manufacturer's warranty, and due to the age of the machine, was unwilling to assist. When I went to the store to look at other machines today, non-Whirlpool, never again, the salesperson said we were the second person in 3 days that came in with the bad bearings issue on the machine, and the other customer also had one that was 4 years old as well, which irked me even more knowing the response Whirlpool gave me. It's unfortunate that Whirlpool doesn't stand behind their product the way that an automaker does when there's a common issue that needs to be addressed. Fully paid recall fix is what the guy's talking about. I would think that most other consumers agree that they expect major appliances to last longer than 4 years. Very disappointed. I would not recommend this to a friend. Now, that's just one of them. Okay, I've got several more, and I don't want to take the time to read them. The point is that manufacturers are making substandard products with labels that read like Made in USA, like Whirlpool. Now, who would buy a washing machine that they would expect to last for 4 years? Who? Who would do that? Some people have them on the third floor of their house. Some people have them in apartments. Some people have them on higher than the third floor. Some people have them on the second story. Some people need to hire somebody to lift them up, to carry them up the stairs. There's all kinds of expenses that go into a washing machine that are above and beyond the cost of the washer, let alone the taxes. The whole point I'm trying to make is here we are being let down by Whirlpool. Now, I recommended Whirlpool to our son because it used to be good. But you can't get a good one, in my opinion, based on the reviews I read, that is a high-efficiency one. The high-efficiency ones use so little water. It's great. They use so little water that they don't clean the clothes very well. And you have to buy a special detergent to go with them. You can't use that regular old detergent that's cheap, or less expensive, I should say. You can't use that. You've got to use this high-efficiency washing machine detergent, which costs more. So it costs more, uses less water. So what happens? The spin cycle doesn't work right, the clothes don't come out clean, and you have to wash them twice anyway. So how does that work? And then the bearings wear out in 4 years. That is just one tiny example of what's wrong with America. Companies have, accountants. I think it's the accountants that are doing it. I think the accountants come into the manufacturing site after they look at the numbers, and then they go, we don't need no stinking steel. We don't need that. Let's make a washing machine without any material at all. That's what we got to do. So the machines are lighter, flimsier, they rust faster, they don't last as long, and yet they cost more. Well, that's good, so that the chief executive officers can buy jets and yachts and mansions and women on the side. Did I say anything that doesn't seem right? I don't think so. Your comments, Rich. Give me a chance to take my blood pressure.
Yeah, well, I can go on. I mean, we've talked about this many, many different times. Basically, when you have 80% of Americans living paycheck to paycheck, we have the aristocracy dominating the serfs. And people try to be frugal, but they can't because of the forced obsolescence, forced breakdown of these particular products. We have lousy customer service, and it all happens because we've lowered the bars of standards and expectations for getting a job and keeping a job based on group identity politics. And I've mentioned this for years, and you can verify this, Vince, that when you lower the bars of standards and expectations for getting a job and you reward mediocrity for decade after decade after decade, you destroy America from within. You turned it into the law of diminishing returns. So the opportunity, the knowledge, ingenuity, productivity, innovation is only available for the very few at the very top. And anything that has anything to do with high tech or smart doesn't mean it's a better product. It usually means it's higher cost, it's more hassle, more expensive to repair, more forced obsolescence and poorer quality, especially with the customer service that we have. If you buy anything from anybody today, folks, and it has very poor customer service that goes along with the purchase, I would walk out the door and go back in time and look at things that you can do. Like one of the things, we have a washing machine that we can actually wash our clothes by heating water, throw it in there, and we agitate it with, by moving the arm. It's not rocket science. We haven't had a dryer for years. We use a Lehman's wood drying rack that the pioneers and homesteaders used hundreds of years ago. We just leave it upstairs in the loft, so when the wood cook stove is on or it's hot in the summer, it dries within hours, and we don't have to worry about clothes getting deteriorated in the dryer cycle from the heat and shrinking at the same time. And you mentioned women on the side at the very end there and buying yachts and stuff like that. Well, that's what the elite do. And I'll tell you something. I don't care what they do. I don't care if they buy women on the side. But for all the women who complain, whether it be the Me Too or the feminists or whatever, you're never calling on these women who are gold diggers, who marry for money. You never call on these women who are mistresses. You look at the porn star Stormy Daniels. Basically, if you're selling sex for money and you're at the same time complaining that you're not getting respected, you're getting degraded, and you're blaming men when the women are voluntarily doing this. Remember what I always say, the same rules, laws, and accountability for everybody. I don't care how politically incorrect it is. If you're going to blame men for doing this, you better blame women for voluntarily doing it from the other side as well. This political correct crap has to stop. So this is what happens. We're heading towards a society where the middle class is disintegrating. It's being deleted. It's the definition will change because that's what the powers that be do. They change the words, make them politically correct buzzwords. They change definitions. That's why they're getting rid of books. They want everything to be electronic. So the definitions, like we've talked about many times in the air regarding like fascism, for example, they're going to morph the generations by changing the definitions of words, of popular American words, like marriage and everything else, and they're going to change culture, traditions, and heritage, and especially lower the bar of the standards and expectations for getting a job, and this is metastasized like a cancer.
We'll be right back. Class, in a lot of ways, the Internet's a really good thing. So just one more two-sentence report on Whirlpool. Headline, total failure in less than 4 years. This is a review. I bought this piece of junk a little over 3 years ago. It takes an hour to do a simple load of laundry, and now the bearings are shot, and the repair estimates is more than I paid for the thing. No more Whirlpool for me. No, I would not recommend this to a friend. Okay? And what Whirlpool responds, thank you for your review. We would like the opportunity to speak with you further about your concerns. Please email us your name, address, etc. to Whirlpool. So many one-star reviews. Why is that? Well, I was telling our instructor friend, I was teaching a class yesterday on a one-on-one class on automotive repair, and I've been doing it for weeks, weekends. And so I said, we had a dishwasher and it failed. It was made, it was a Kenmore, and it failed, and ultimately we were able to get a replacement under the 5-year warranty. It was difficult to get it, but we got it. And so it was a $500 dishwasher, and the one they replaced it with was $347. So I said, I'll take two, because they wouldn't give me a refund on the difference in the price. So I took two, and both of them failed the same way. I gave one to my mom and dad, and we had one. We lived next door to them, and they both failed within, 1 or 2 months of each other. Same exact failure. So what I'm telling you, class, is if you think you're the only ones, like, geez, the bearings went out, and the repair guy says, wow, the bearings went out. You think you're the only one? Of course not. Of course not. It's happened to others, lots of others. And just like these reviews, bearings after bearings after bearings have been reported bad. Well, just like the dishwasher that we had, the Kenmore. Same exact failure. Same exact failures with the BMW window regulators, that they move the windows up and down. Same thing with the Mercedes windows regulators. Same thing with the Ford, Chevy, Chrysler products. Same failures over and over and over again. But the dealers will tell you, and the factory will tell you, oh, no, it's just you. It's just you. That's what's wrong with America. Let's be honest. We make a crappy product. Let's fix it. And don't charge the customer for the fix. Rich?
Well, absolutely right. And what the big tech is doing to protect the corporate oligarchies and our fascist system that we've had going on for the last 20 years is that I'm surprised a lot of those comments are still available, because a lot of comments are being erased, followers are being erased, likes are being erased. Basically, they are holding on and manufacturing the phony news narrative, that includes the mainstream media especially, with censoring and surveillance and shadow banning and subjective emotional opinions, and try to pretend that their view is more popular in order to distract, dumb down, and divide the American people. And that's what their plan is to make it seem like their view is the right view. And as people are waking up in America by the millions, that is obviously not the case, Vince.
Okay, so, I was thinking about this morning. And I was thinking, all right, who started this stuff? Well, it sounds to me like Bill Gates was one of the pioneers of this. And what do I mean by that? So Bill Gates comes out with an operating system, and he calls it Windows, for example. Or he calls it DOS. And he says to his lawyers, okay, we want to sell this thing. We want to charge our customers for it, but we don't want to let them own it. We want to get paid, but they can't own it. So the lawyers say, what? You want to sell it to them. It's theirs to use. They can hold it. They can keep it in their safety deposit box, or they can keep it on their computer. They can keep it in their desk drawer, but they can't own it. Right. That's what I want to do. Right. So he sells a defective product, and he calls it an operating system, like Windows. He sells a defective product of which he is not responsible for anything. So if it doesn't work, too bad. But you can get another one, a newer version of another defective product, and replace the current defective product with a newer defective product, and you can spend another $89 for that. Okay, and then tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. And
no, I'm just laughing because you keep saying defective product, and
it is
very apropos. I agree. No, I agree. I'm just laughing because it's actually pitiful how we've lowered our bars of standards and expectations in the job and commerce world in America to benefit the very few at the top.
Yeah, well, I got a couple more little parts to talk about this, and I'm going to relate this to a house. So you want to have a house built, and let's relate Windows to a house. Not Windows in the house, but, the Microsoft Windows, Microsoft Windows with a home. We'll be right back. So here's the analogy with Bill Gates and the home. And so you go to the home builder and you say, can you build us a house? And he says, sure. Can you build one with 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a living room, and a basement? He says, sure. So he builds the house, and after you own it for years and years and years, you find out he put a hole in it. And so he can check on you, make sure everything's okay. So he can look in. So what's the builder's name? Well, it's Tom. That's his last name. His first name is Peeping. So his full name is Peeping Tom. So you built a house from a guy whose name is Peeping Tom. And that's who Bill Gates is. Bill Gates is a Peeping Tom. He built software, and you bought it. Well, you didn't buy it. You paid for it. You didn't own it. You kind of used it, and he keeps the ownership to it. You get to use it, until you can't stand it anymore, and you buy another copy of Bill Gates software. And he puts a hole in it so he can look in. He's a Peeping Tom. This kind of stuff has got to stop. Absolutely got to stop. Who are these people who think that it is okay to trick you, to deceive you, to lie, to obfuscate, to confuse you, to think that, so that you think that you're buying something that's really not what it is? Like a TV that watches you. Who are these people? It has to be done with the blessing of the government corporation. Now, when are we going to stand up and say enough's enough? Well, here's what you do, in my opinion. Everything I say is my opinion. So when you guys come to sue me, these are my opinions. So use your credit card to buy these things. Now, you're going to be tracked with your credit card purchase, but if you have a crappy washing machine and it doesn't work, you start a dispute. You call the bank on the phone, their 800 number, and you say, hey, I bought this crappy washing machine from Best Buy or wherever you bought it, Lowe's, Home Depot, wherever, and you say, it's not working right. The salesperson, well, actually, I don't know if it's a salesperson. The guy who pretended to be the salesperson told me this was great. And it's not. It leaks all over the floor, or it doesn't wash the clothes right. And I want to start a dispute. Instantly, you are now credited with the full purchase price until you fight it out, and whoever gives up first loses. So you fight it out with the company that sold it to you, and whoever gives up with this battle of letters loses. So you just don't give up, okay? And you can get your money back. That's how you do it. But first you have to try to resolve it, with the company that sold it to you. So use your credit card and dispute. And that's the way to do it. And what happens when you dispute it? The vendor, the merchant, gets charged $35 right off the bat, just because you disputed it. Now, if enough of us hit him with $35, we might start to change the tide of these defective products. Rich?
Yeah, well, this is why they're called, or we call them, the treasonous state. And it doesn't matter if it's Bill Gates. It doesn't matter. There's an article here. Zuckerberg pours millions into midterm initiatives. And people, please don't be fooled. The left-right paradigm is a lot less of that, a lot more the aristocracy managing and controlling the serfs. Look at Bezos from Amazon, gets $1.50 from taxpayers for each box shipped, negotiated with the post office. Big tech in general has sold out the people. They've sold out the little people, the bottom 93% of the income earners. Apple, Google, they've already sold out to China, and they are on their soil. And when you look at all these big tech companies that have gotten subsidies, that have gotten lobbying advantages, licensing benefits, tax breaks, moving to China on America's dime with the savings from Americans, breaking antitrust laws, shadow banning, censoring, surveillance. The only way the little people are going to have, I'm not even talking about quality of life, I'm talking surviving, especially with the advent of robotics, automation, and artificial intelligence that's going to take tens of millions of jobs. And it already is. It's not in the future. It's already starting. The only way we're going to survive, the people are going to survive, is to break them up. Not nationalize, but to break up. All these companies that have taken advantage of the American taxpayers, all the big tech, all the big corporate oligarchies, for that matter, big pharma, you name it, they need to be broken up into thousands of different companies. Thousands. That's the only hope we have, because big tech, big government, big corporate oligarchies, the gazillionaires of the world, the very few people are all so-called liberal and basically put money into liberal causes, just like the article about Zuckerberg pouring millions into the midterms. Don't be fooled by the ideology, folks. The mainstream media is bought and paid for. In other words, the talking heads are owned to manufacture perception, pity, guilt, and the false, phony ideology. That's why their job and everybody's job at the top is to distract, dumb down, and divide us by groups: race, gender, sex, sexual orientation, ideology, generation. That's why there's race baiting and gender baiting and religion baiting on almost every mainstream media. It's to keep us off tilt. It's to keep us off balance. But the big issue is, and I talked about it already today, when you lower the bars of standards and expectations for getting a job, You insult the work ethic, the ability, and the intelligence of everybody put in that group. You don't empower a group. You don't empower an individual. And you definitely do not empower a nation by lowering the bars of standards and expectations. You actually destroy a nation. In fact, here's a new article that just hit the boards this weekend. In California, state legislators are forcing publicly traded companies to hire women on their boards. I don't care who gets hired. Nobody cares who gets hired. Nobody cares who has sex behind closed doors as long as it's done with adults. All they care about is adult mutual consensual sex. All they care about is getting the job through hard work, effort, proven results, and qualifications, and not lowering the bars of standards and expectations. This has been all done for a divide and conquer strategy to work. They don't want synergy. They want to degrade and disrespect every group. This is why they use the term identity politics, and that because they want to throw you off. They don't want to use group identity politics. They don't want to use victim group status. They don't want to use protectionist group status. They are not only changing the definitions of words, but they are using Hegelian dialectic. They're using media propaganda. They're using subliminal messaging. They're using professional wordsmithing, and this is why Netflix, who doesn't make a dime, uses up a ton of cash, is trading at such a high PE value. There's no value to this company. This company is used as a propaganda tool by the elite in order to distract, dumb down, and divide the people. They want to change our culture, our traditions, our heritage. They want to make sure your eye is not on the ball. And as people are waking up, we can all see that they're trying harder and harder to make it seem like their view is more popular. But as people wake up and they read up and they research up and they speak up and they vote up, the elite can see that they're losing ground. Don't let them think that they're right, because they're not even close to right. They're forcing you to do what you think. They want to make you submissive. They want to break your will. That's why they call you a controversial extremist, racist, bigot, sexist, misogynist, homophobe, intolerant, violent, hater, conspiracy theorist with an anti in front of every word and an ismist and phobia on the back of every word. I have an article right here, and it's titled, I found it, about a week or two ago, and I was going to mention it last week, Vince, and I didn't get to it. As usual, but it's titled Why Libs Fear and Denigrate Black Conservatives. And I don't care what gender you are. I don't care what race or shade of skin pigmentation you are, or religion you are, or ideology, or your sexual orientation. No one cares. They care about earning the job through hard work, effort, proven results, qualifications, and other criteria like that. But I just want to mention some of the quotes by some of these black leaders. And these are black leaders. And I'm not going to paraphrase, I'm going to quote. This is from Justice Clarence Thomas. The worst I have ever been treated was by the northern liberal elite. The absolute worst I have ever been treated. Justice Clarence Thomas. This is Herman Cain. He ran for president, remember? There is only one group of people liberals hate worse than conservatives, and that's conservatives who happen to be black. The reason for that is real simple. The recent conservatives who happen to be black for leaving the Democrat plantation, and you can quote me on that, unquote. The next quote is by Thomas Sowell. The black family survived centuries of slavery and generations of Jim Crow, but it has disintegrated in the wake of liberal expansion of the welfare state. Next one, Walter Williams. Liberals desperately need blacks. If the Democrat Party just lost 30% of the black vote, it would mean the end of the liberal agenda. That means blacks must be kept in a perpetual state of grievance in order to keep them as one-party people in a two-party system. When black Americans finally realize how much liberals have used them, I'm betting they will be the nation's most conservative people, unquote. Here's a quote from Representative Allen West. The liberal progressive left will spare no effort to demean, denigrate, destroy, and discredit black conservatives. Liberal hypocrisy has a repulsive directly from Dr. Ben Carson. White liberals are the most racist people there are because they put blacks in a box and insist that they think one way. And if they don't attack them as illegitimate, all the while denying that their politics have destroyed blacks. See, it doesn't matter if you're black or Hispanic. It doesn't matter what your gender is or what your sexual orientation is. These people want to put you in a box, make you vote a certain way, using propaganda, subliminal messaging, and all this Hegelian dialectic to destroy the American tradition and culture. And what it does, lowers the bars of standards and expectations in America. Vince?
I was just wondering how your blood pressure is. We'll be right back. Boy, this is frustrating. You know, I think CenturyTel, the telephone company, is competing with all third world countries for the worst telephone service. And I think they're winning. I got to tell you that I'm on the telephone right now. Why? Because our digital link went down. And it's about as frustrating as can be. Well, I was talking to our neighbor, and I said, so Stuart, how's your telephone service? Well, it still has the hum. How long has it had it? 9 months. Really? Okay, well, let's get it fixed. So I got on the phone weeks ago with CenturyLink, they call themselves now. It used to be called CenturyTel. When it was CenturyTel, it was okay. Now that it's CenturyLink, it is degraded to, it's down there at the bottom. Well, we finally got it fixed. And how they fix it? Well, they ran a piece of wire, 2 conductors, from one farm to across another farm, down the side of the road, to patch the wire that's broken. That's what they do around here. So instead of calling a guy with a trench, instead of having their own trencher, they just run wire on top of the road. Now, that's, it sounds far-fetched. Well, for years, CenturyLink ran wire through our tree. Literally, they took a piece of wire and they ran it from tree to tree to tree to tree, and they tied it on with these tie wraps. No kidding. That's what they do. So in order to fix this guy's telephone line, that's what they did. Now, it now works, but it took 9 months. 9 months for him to get his phone line fixed. Pretty frustrating, if you ask me. But that's CenturyLink. And I advised our neighbor, I said, look, hey, Stuart, here's what you do. You call CenturyLink and you say, you know what? You guys have been miserable. You guys haven't given me any telephone service that I've been paying for, and including the insurance. So that if something happens in my house, I pay you a fee per month to come fix it. Well, I'm covered end to end to end, but it doesn't work. So for 9 months, I want a credit for 9 months. We'll see how that works. That's what I would do. I would do that. I would hound them until they finally gave in. And how much is his phone service? Twice as much as ours. He's paying out over $110, I think $119 per month for a line and DSL. Really? That's what he's paying. So I told him about the discounts and how you can call CenturyLink and say, well, I'd like the loyalty discount. Great. Do you have any other loyalty discounts? I'd like that one, too. Do you have any other loyalty discounts? I'd like that one, too. Do you have any others? I'd like that one, too. Is there anything else that you guys have that, I'd like that, too. I've got like 5 or 6 discounts on our telephone line. Brings it from $89 down to $39. You can do it, too. But you don't just say, do you have a discount? You have to say, hey, have any more? Any more after that? Any more after that? That's what you have to do. Rich, I'm really frustrated because the Internet's down again. It's like the only thing I can count on with CenturyLink is that it goes down. That's all I can count on.
Yeah. Well, with the economy going in the direction it is, it's getting very, very frustrating for the bottom 93% of Americans because they can't control their own destiny. I mean, we don't have the people at the top are personally trying to distract, or just, obstruct all the subsets you can put under distract, divide us by groups, and that's what group identity politics does. It's basically saying you can't think for yourself. So when they convince the people they can't think for themselves, whether it be a phone bill or poor customer service or products breaking down. They have groomed and cultivated the people to not fight back, to not speak up. Now, here's an example. I'm on Zero Hedge right now. Chaos erupts during Kavanaugh hearing after hecklers begin shrieking, 22 arrested. Well, see, when you can't compete in the arena of ideas and solutions, what do? You start shrieking, screaming, yelling, creating violence. That's where we're at with a lot of people because they're not using their big boy and big girl words anymore. And we've lost common sense and logic. We need to get back to it, man.
Yeah, big boy and big girl words. You're absolutely right. And so when people are trying to buy appliances, like a washing machine, they get so frustrated they don't know what to do, and they just go, I can't take it anymore, I'm just going to get one. Look at this one with the big button. Yeah, that's the one with the display, with the button. And I don't need an agitator. Heck, I hear they work without agitators now. Let's get one of those. That fails a lot, but that's okay. It's too hard to make a choice. We'll be right back. Everyone all set? Cocked, locked. Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. One more review, Whirlpool, right? I'm very disappointed with this product. I must buy a new washing machine, and this one is only 3 years old. Bearings are shot, and the repair would be $400 plus. I will not buy another Whirlpool in the future, and neither will my friends. No, I would not recommend this to a friend. This is just anecdotal evidence of what's wrong with America. Accountants are destroying the United States of America. Example, Sears Roebuck and Company. Get these new accountants in there in the 1970s. They destroy one of America's finest institutions. It used to be awesome. Good, better, best. Sears had it. No matter what you wanted, you could buy it. Now it's a joke. It's a joke. The question is, are they going to be able to survive through the end of this year? Maybe they'll make it through Christmas, maybe one more Christmas. But Sears Roebuck and Company is on life support. So is Kmart. And so are a lot of other companies who decided that, you know what, we will not pay attention to our customers. We will ignore our customers. We'll sell them crappy products. We'll fleece them. And everything will be good. It'll be good. We'll make more money. And so what do? Do you buy an LG Gold Star? Well, I know someone who bought one of those. The front loader leaks all over the floor. Well, of course it leaks on the floor because it's a front loader. A top loader is the way to go. Okay? So what else happens with a front loader? Well, on the spin cycle, it starts walking across the floor. I guess that's what'd the engineers say? That's not so bad. We'll just glue it down. That's all you do. Glue it to the floor. Then it won't walk. I mean, who thinks of this stuff? Who thinks up these defective products? Who approves these defective products? And, it's got to be the accountants. It's got to be. Because no engineer is going to say, you know what? My designs are no worse than anybody else's. I'm a crappy engineer. So let's use my design. I mean, nobody would say that. Engineers are usually proud of their work. But it's the accountants, I believe, who are taking the material out of the product, like the steel. You look at a dishwasher today and look at the frame. They used to have frames. Now they've got these little stamped steel pieces, and you go, where's the frame? Well, heck, we don't need no stinking frame. It's a dishwasher. And how long do they last? I don't know, but ours is made by General Electric, another crappy company, and the dishwashing basket, where you put your dishes, it's all worn out, and it's rusted. So how much is a new one? Oh, about half the price of a dishwasher. That's nuts. That's nuts. That's where we are today, Rich.
Well, yeah, you talk about accountants destroying America. We can also add lawyers, judges, politicians, and bankers. Basically, what you're talking about is you're getting into the edge of our economy. And the powers that be need to have forced obsolescence because they need to increase the velocity of money. They have to give the impression that things are looking good. And we've talked about this for hours and hours and hours, and I know I have alone. But when you look at things like, I don't mean to simplify the economy, but when you look at auto and housing getting lower and lower and lower, and subprime mortgages with not just housing, which has been going on with auto loans for a couple of years now. It's getting worse and worse and worse. And we all know that when auto and housing goes, so does the economy into a recession. And we're at the point in America that we have to stop asking, what are they going to do? What are the Keynesians going to do? What are the central bankers going to do? What are the politicians going to do? What are the powers that be behind the political correct tools going to do with group identity politics? You know, for the past 200 years, we basically had a recession every 4.5 to 5 years, okay? And now we're going on 10 years with so-called the best bull market economy. What a bunch of crap. You know, we've had QE, we've had stock buybacks, we've had central bank purchases. I've talked about this for hours over the air. You look at the Swiss National Bank, they're printing money out of thin air by pressing buttons, and they buy our stocks, and then we, the taxpayers, ship over $1 billion worth of dividends and profits to them, and now they own probably somewhere in the neighborhood of $90 billion of U.S. stocks, plus bonds, a.k.a. debt. And how can we pencil this out to be common sense and logic? That's where we are at in America. I mean, you tell me, Vince, let me just give you some data, and you tell me if this looks like we're in a healthy economy. And that's why this is all dovetailing on poor quality, on creative accounting, and all the things that you talked about. Now, tell me if you feel that this is healthy. You mentioned General Motors. General Motors pays 4.1% dividend yield, yet their cash flows are negative. Okay, let's look at the Treasury yield spread. I've talked about this for hours again. Look at the 2 and 10 year. That's what a lot of people look at. Okay, the spread is somewhere in the teens as far as the basis points go, okay? So the last time this happened was in 2007. Do we all know what happened in 2008? See, this is all smoke and mirrors. How about big companies like Coca-Cola? They pay its investors more money than the business generates. So they go into more and more debt, same with the stock options, and these illusions are becoming more common with a lot of companies. Now, this is probably a week and a half year old data. I think I mentioned this before. According to the Wall Street Journal, 60% of corporate debt issued by the Russell 2000 is rated as junk. Junk. And 25% of the Russell 2000 firms don't make money. Now, you tell me if in an era where we have PE ratios that are higher than the Great Depression, and we have big tech purposely censoring, surveilling, manipulating, getting rid of followers, comments, likes, changing search results, changing definitions of common American words. Can you tell me we are in a good economic economy? Can you tell me that the little people are doing well? Can you tell me that debt is not through the moon and savings is in the basement? I mean, with what I just told you in that, a minute and a half, 2 minutes, are you surprised that the big corporate oligarchies are putting out poor quality and using China and India and Vietnam because we can't hire labor anymore because of political correctness, because we've had so many decades of someone telling a joke in the hallway and people sue because someone got offended? And we can't even run a business in America anymore. Do you think that women or elderly or kids or people in general or blacks or Hispanic are being liberated because they have to go back to work? No, it's because our deficits are through the roof, government spending's through the roof, the paychecks and benefits of government workers and pensions and all this, these government promises are unaffordable. We have increased subsidies to colleges and health care who are manufacturing inflation through the roof to the people, increased welfare and food stamps, and people taking out of the kitty and not putting into the kitty. And I use that example all the time in the realm, or the example, analogy, if you will, of Social Security. You put into the kitty, you take out of the kitty. Well, our economy in the 50s, 60s, 80s, even 90s was much better than it is today, because you don't liberate people when they're forced to work. And at the same time, you don't liberate people when there's 100 million people out of the workforce who are living on pennies. Liberation is not welfare and food stamps. That's slavery. That's keeping people from their dreams, from their goals. That's socialism. And when we go full-fledged socialism, communism, tyranny, totalitarianism, authoritarianism, all the isms, whatever you want to call them, you are going to see America change so quickly, because you're going to be told what to do, what to say, how to think, and who to do it with, and at what time to do it and where to live. Because if we lose our Bill of Rights and our Constitution, where millions of Americans have fought and died for, our freedoms, liberties, and so-called justice, where there isn't any, because everything is by group identity politics today, things are going to get a lot worse. And we are on that edge, folks. This is why I'm redundant on reading up, researching up, speaking up. That's the only way we're going to wake up, and then we need to vote up. We have to have the same rules, laws, and accountability for everybody. And again, don't be fooled by the left-right paradigm. Realize that it's all a game. And the headwinds that we have for our future rates of growth in this stagflationary, deflationary economy is not going to be good. They're rigging the game. Everything is speculation and hedging. Solvency and liquidity for the bottom 93% is going to be a huge issue. And the only way we're going to get out of this, if we can, is to be prepared, and we have to understand that it's more the aristocracy controlling the serfs. And with the future, these economic headwinds we have for future rate of growth, with demographics, debt, credit, that's why I talk about yield curves often. That means credit is collapsing. Pensions, valuations, all these government promises, the global corporate household debt, everything. If we don't wake up and realize that we're being played by the elite, and they're making sure that they have what they want. Why do you think I've talked about all these practice what you preach laws, standing for principle, self-sufficiency preparedness schools? I mentioned last week on the air about that Ferrari that went for $50 million. How come none of these big gazillionaires, multimillionaires, and I'm not talking someone who has a $2-3 million net worth. I'm talking about tens of millions, hundreds of millions, billionaires. Why aren't they calling and saying, let's help the American people with self-sufficiency preparedness schools? Let's think outside the box. Let's relearn 19th century skill sets and dovetail them with 21st century technology. It's not left-right paradigm. It's the aristocracy controlling you. Vince?
We'll be right back. Rich Sheben's with us. In class, over the years, I've had a lot of really neat cars. And two of them happened to be Volvo station wagons. One was a 740 turbo wagon and a 940 turbo wagon. I use those in our business, and they're great vehicles. But let me just read a couple Volvo ads. And one of them shows a Volvo station wagon on a line with a Lamborghini. The Volvo station wagon is by itself right next to this Lamborghini hooked up to a cargo trailer. And it says the basic idea behind the Volvo turbo wagon. So what they're saying is the Volvo turbo wagon is kind of like a Lamborghini with a trailer. You can haul your stuff around in. And then there's another Volvo ad, and they had great marketing campaigns back then. And there's a picture of a Lotus and a Volvo station wagon. And it says what to do when your family outgrows the Lotus. Okay? There's another one. I'm looking for that. And it says to a radar gun, they look exactly alike. And it's got the Volvo wagon and a expensive, high-performance race car. Okay, there's another one that's let's see. Let me see if I can find it. It's brilliant. It says talks about disposable income, and it shows a Volvo, and the words are something like this: for people who think that none of their income is disposable. So they're talking about value, okay, with these Volvos. Another one is for people who actually believe a car's price should bear some relationship to its worth. So those were some of the Volvo slogans. Well, here's what happened. Well, at some point back in the 90s, Volvo started changing the material used for the wiring harnesses, and they would just disintegrate. It was a really common problem. So Volvo technicians were dismayed after, and this is, I'm reading from 240turbo.com, 240turbo.com. It's a Volvo website. It says, why do the wiring harnesses need to be replaced in Volvo cars? Years ago, Volvo service technicians began noticing severe problems with the main engine harness near the ignition coils. In 1992 and later, Volvo 960, S90, and V90 models. The cars are equipped with a 6-cylinder, 24-valve engine. I began to get emails from concerned technicians. Volvo technicians were dismayed after discovering these problems and then finding that Volvo was demanding highly inflated prices for the 960 main engine harness, up to $5,000 apiece. So what happened was, so for this lousy wiring harness, people were sending their Volvos to the salvage yard, all because of, maybe 100 feet of wire bundled into a wiring harness. It's ridiculous. There's just one more example of what used to be considered a great car company, first quality car company, disintegrating their wiring harnesses through cheap manufacturing methods, causing people to junk their cars. So you take a whole car, and it's so expensive to fix it because of a crappy wiring harness. That's just one more example of the fleecing of the little people. And I had one of these. I had one of these Volvos. It wasn't the one they're talking about, the 6-cylinder. I had the 4-cylinder, and the same thing happened in the wiring harness of them. Bottom line is, companies are doing this stuff to us. And whoever would have thought that if you buy a car 15 years later, the wiring harness would disintegrate, and it's so difficult to fix it because it crumbles the insulation, that the wires short out and you can't drive the car, and now you have a piece of junk because it's $5,000 to fix it. Who would have ever thought that? Would you buy a car from a new car lot knowing that it's going to fail in X number of years? Would you do that? Well, that's the way it really is. I'd love to hear Rich Sheben's comments when we get back. Do you have any in 10 seconds, Rich?
Well, Vince, well, we don't have enough time. I'll share.
All right, on the other side. On the other side. More of what Rich Sheben's talking about. The fleecing. So I mentioned Volvo, which used to be a fabulous car company, and they appealed to the educated, to the discerning customer of theirs, and then they decided they were going to make lousy wiring harnesses. And I had two of these vehicles with these two lousy wiring harnesses, and it's really difficult to fix them because you have to replace all the wires. How many is that? Like all the wires. Because they literally, if you hold them in your fingers, they will crumble, the insulation will crumble, and they'll short out. And it can be when you're driving, it can be on the highway, it can be in your driveway, it can be at any time. Absolutely frustrating. And that's Volvo. So Sears, Volvo, General Motors, take your pick, Whirlpool, all these companies are giving the shaft to their customers. To their customers. And they think it's okay. And it's not just them. It's like any business. It's almost like, Richie, it's almost like people sit around in the conference rooms at the highest levels of these companies, and they say, so what's the worst thing we can do to our customer? Okay, well, let's do it. Because they've got no choice. Because if they don't want to buy our Chevrolet, they'll switch to Chrysler, but they're doing the same thing we're going to do. And so is Ford. And so is Volvo. So where do you get a good car? I don't know. Your thoughts, Rich?
Well, it's a new description of Murphy's Law, where the law of diminishing return meets Bernie Madoff. And, of course, it's a little tongue-in-cheek, but everything, as the bars of standards and expectations go down for getting a job, like I always say, it has metastasized like a cancer into the quality of our products, into our work ethic and everything else, because nothing matters. It all depends on what group you're in. That's the only thing that matters in America. So it's just like subprime auto loans, since you're talking about cars. You lower the bars of standards and expectations for lenders, skipping income verification, things of that nature. Basically, who takes it in the shorts and gets stabbed in the back is the little people. The little people, again, doesn't have representation, has no protection on the law, has no restitution on the law. But think about what we need to be prepared for in the future. You look at, America's always been a leader in so-called economy and GDP, and have given many definitions about how those books are cooked, including unemployment, including inflation and CPI and all this stuff. I've talked about this for hours. But just to skip over it, you look at what's happening in a lot of the more developed nations. China, they could have a higher GDP than us by 2025. There's 43 countries already in the world that has a cheaper labor cost than China. So China's middle class is growing and ours is shrinking. And that's one of the reasons they don't need to buy our debt anymore. So when more and more countries sell our treasury bonds and don't need to buy our debt, and our world reserve currency becomes irrelevant, and there's no more petrodollar, whether it be for oil trade or just commerce in general, what's going to happen? And I'll tell you right now, America's lifestyle is going to decrease dramatically. And you think it's bad now during this so-called greatest bull market of history, which is the biggest bunch of hooey. What we're going to have to do for the little people, and that includes me and you, Vince, we have to start preparing for the future with words like frugality, living below your means, knowing the fine line between needs and wants, self-sufficiency, learning those lost 19th century skills, but dovetailing them with 21st century technology. We have to bring back our mentor-protege relationships. Our teachers and educators, basically, we can't have anybody teaching our youth who doesn't have 15 years of successful private sector experience. We need to start teaching practical experience in lieu of theory. These are the things that we're going to have to start thinking about regarding our future, because if we just talk about all the things that's happening and don't talk about the ideas and solutions to help the little people along the way, we could have social unrest, we could have race wars, we could have all this stuff. We need to start thinking outside the box, but getting back to relearning common sense, logic, rationale, words that have escaped the English way of life. And I think if we can be prepared for what's happening and give some of the tools to the little people, like we've talked about before, Vince, buying land together, creating databases of like-minded people who can't afford to buy land. We get them together in a room or over the computer, and we give them ideas and solutions on how to share capital resources and tools and skill sets and cross-train one another and turn the land into a hobby farm and sell it down the road, and everybody walks away with a proportionate amount of earlier negotiated terms, and it turns into a job as well as a lifestyle. So these are the things that we need to start doing, and because not everybody's going to be a computer coder, and not everybody wants to be. And I'll be honest with you, we're losing our perspective and balance between too many things that made us great. And the biggest balance, especially with our youth, is the imbalance between nature and technology. The average child spends 7 hours a week outside. That should be unacceptable. We need to get people back into sports more. We need to get people outdoors, hiking and camping and getting back to nature and getting them learning botany and thinking again. People look at my website and they say, well, Rich, I don't hunt and fish. You don't have to hunt and fish. I give tours on edible and medicinal plants. I'm into the outdoors and nature and ornithology and dendrology and silviculture, and you name it. I love everything about nature. And if people could get back to it, I think we can cultivate thinkers in lieu of the powers that be wanting to cultivate and groom followers. Vince?
Wow. I totally agree. And I'm going to prove it. I'm going to prove it right now. The last couple of weeks, we bought 4 vehicles here at the farm. 4 vehicles. Do we need them? No. Absolutely not. So, when you talk about we need to learn how to think again, well, here's what happened. I'm going to tell you about these vehicles very briefly, and I'm going to tell you why the person sold them. And these are all advertised, that you could buy them. They were on the internet. So we bought a 2006 Chevrolet Trailblazer for $600. So we bought this truck for $600. Why? It needed to have the transmission work done. How much was a Trailblazer new in 2006? $27,000. We bought it for $600. We bought a 2000 Mercedes-Benz ML430. That's the SUV all-wheel drive. How much are they new? Back in 2000, between $35,000 and $65,000. We paid $500 for it. Why? It needed tie rod ends replaced, 4 of them, and an all-wheel alignment and tires. We bought a BMW, a 2000 BMW 528i for $700. Why? Because it had a blown head gasket, and the owner couldn't fix it. And so she had it worked on by a guy who couldn't fix it either. So the engine was taken apart. And how much was that? $39,000. What did we pay for it? $700. Bought another BMW just like it. $39,000 new. Paid $1,000 for it. Why? What was wrong with it? Well, the ignition key and lock didn't work. And BMW wants so much money for the ignition key. They have these electronic type keys, and you can only get them at BMW, that the person couldn't afford to get a new key for the ignition. So they sold the car. Think about that. Can you imagine?
Wow.
Can you imagine, saying, yeah. Can you? I'm so furious. I mean, I'm glad we got it. I feel terrible for the person that sold it to us.
No. Hey, Vince, I got to throw something. Vince, pardon the interruption, buddy. I got to throw something in here because I have this conversation with a lot of people quite often, and that is so many people, they buy the snowmobiles, they buy the UTVs, they buy the ATVs, they buy the cars, they buy the boats, they buy this, they buy that. They can afford the initial price, but they forget about the maintenance, the taxes, the insurance, especially with having all these big structures on your property. You're taxed by your square footage of your structures, okay? People need to start thinking about the future in the cost of keeping these toys and so-called lifestyle. The more you have, the more you have to maintain it and keep it and spend for it. And that's part of living below your means. Vince?
You're absolutely right. So let's talk about this BMW for $1,000. I mean, really, I'm not kidding. It needed an ignition key. And the problem with that is if the key doesn't work, you can't put it in ignition, turn the cylinder to unlock the steering wheel. So this gal literally, we went to look at it, and the key, she pulled it into her parking space where she lived, in an apartment. She pulled it into the parking space and couldn't get it out because the key didn't work. The key didn't work. And it was too expensive to have BMW replace the lock cylinder and the key. The other one, literally blown head gasket. Incompetence by the guy who tried to fix the head gasket. Didn't know what he was doing. So he left the engine apart. So what's the answer to this? Well, another BMW. So he bought another BMW. So now we have a BMW to take the engine out of, sell the seats, sell all the parts of the doors, the windows, and all that. It'll probably bring $5,000 selling it for parts. And we'll be able to take the engine out of it and fix the one that has the blown head gasket. Because the guy destroyed the engine working on it. What I'm saying is a little bit of knowledge, just learning, leaning over when someone's working on the vehicle, say, wow, mind if I watch? Mind if I learn something? Would that be okay? No one's going to say, no. You can learn, you can watch, and then you can do what we're doing. And you can buy a $500 vehicle that was new at $65,000. Well, I guess, Class, you can hear the frustration in our voice, but very quickly, in the last few minutes we have, no one works on tires the way I was trained. They're really rough on them. They don't use lubricants when they mount and dismount tires. They tear up the bead. I hate it. But you can't tell people how to mount tires anymore because everybody knows everything, especially these young people. They take shortcuts and they're rough on your tires and my tires. So I bought a tire machine. I bought a used one, top of the line, but it's rust colored, just like everything else we have here. And then no one balances tires the way I want them balanced either. And they use weights on just one side. And the tire's not out of balance on just one side. It's out of balance on both sides. Okay? So I want to balance them right, but I can't get anybody to do it. So what do? I bought a tire balancing machine. Well, how much does a tire balancing machine cost? Well, about the kind I bought, $10,000. Did I buy it for $10,000? No. What did I pay for it? $400. Why? Because I bought a used one that no one could figure out how to hook up. It uses three-phase electricity, and most people have split-phase. So how do you hook up three-phase when you only have 240 volts? Well, I guess no one else was willing to figure it out. Well, I did. I bought a device called a static phase converter for $80. So now I have a $400 balancer with an $80 phase converter and $100 worth of other parts, and I've got a balancer for less than $600, which would cost $10,000. All you have to do is think about it and say, yes, I can. I can figure this out. Let me do some research. Let me get on the internet. So what's the next step? Well, I need to buy some tires. How many do I need right now? I need 8. So how am I going to do that? Am I going to call a tire company? No. I'm going to become a tire dealer. When's that going to happen? Thursday. That's what I do. That's what I do. So now I'm going to be able to buy tires wholesale and mount and balance them myself. And then what's going to happen? Well, we already have people coming over here saying, hey, can you sell some tires and mount them and balance them the right way? Of course. That's how it works. And you can do it too. Rich?
Yeah, well, regarding anything under the category of self-sufficiency, I make people realize that you don't have to do it all. You don't have to know it all. Like I looked at the CPI and inflation, and I realized that they don't include energy and food as two of the big things. So I decided to make those two my pet project on how to change my lifestyle, creating my own energy with a solar array and harvesting my own food with whether it be hunting, fishing, raising animals, gardening, harvesting edible medicinal plants, the whole works. And I love all that aspect of nature and self-sufficiency anyway. So, don't feel like you have to learn everything. I say pick some things that you have knowledge in, that you have interest in, and especially that you can give advice to other people in if you hone those skill sets. And that's what it's really all about. And take it from there. But I think the more rural you go, and the less urban suburban you are, you have a better chance on checking off some of those newly acquired skill sets, if you will. Vince?
Well, sure. I mean, so you have a leaky roof and you say, well, let me call the roof guy. Well, why not get on the internet and look up how to fix a roof? Maybe you can do it. Maybe you're young enough. Maybe you're agile enough. Maybe you know some people who are willing to do it. Maybe you can borrow a ladder. Maybe you have a ladder. Don't get rid of those tools that were passed down in your family. Don't get rid of them. I mean, I have shovels from my grandfather. I'm talking about shovels from the 1920s. We have them. Why? Because we know we're going to need them. We just don't know when. And yes, you can do it. So I can't imagine hiring somebody to paint our house, inside or outside. I can't imagine. I can't imagine calling an electrician or a plumber or a heating guy. It's all on the internet. You can look it up. And if you spend the time, you can figure it out. You really can. Did I know about three-phase power before I knew about three-phase power? No, I didn't. But I know enough about it now to hook up the tire belts. And guess what? It works. And it works perfectly. And that's what you can do too, class. So we're not here complaining. We're telling you what the problems are and how we are solving them, one at a time. Rich Even, thank you so much. Class, above all, honesty and integrity. What happens next is up to you.